All right, baseball fans, get ready because opening day is just around the corner. You guys sent in a whole stack of articles from baseballmusings.com. Looks like someone's ready to dominate their NL West fantasy league.
That's what we like to hear. And let me tell you, the NL West is going to be a battleground this year. Lots of interesting moves this offseason.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just look at the Arizona Diamondbacks. Some of their moves have me scratching my head.
Like what?
Well, they let go of Christian Walker, right. He had a 3.0 F4 last year, and they bring in Josh Naylor, who was at 2.3. It's like, why?
Yeah, I see what you mean. You'd think they'd want to hold on to a guy like Walker.
Exactly.
But remember, those F-WAR numbers, they're just a snapshot of the past, right?
Yeah.
The D-backs might be looking at Naylor's potential. He had a strong second half last season, showed some real improvement. They're probably betting on him taking another step forward this year.
So they're thinking long-term. It's a gamble, but it could pay off big time.
Absolutely. And speaking of big moves, they also snagged Corbin Burnes for their rotation. Now that's a game changer.
No kidding. That guy's a strikeout machine.
Exactly. And he hardly ever walks anyone. You know how important that is, especially in a hitter's park like Chase Field.
Oh, absolutely. Got to keep those runners off the bases.
You got it. Now, there's another D-backs pitcher I wanted to mention. Seth Martinez. His stats kind of jumped out at me.
Yeah, what's the deal with him? Low strikeouts, but also a low batting average against. How's that even work?
He's a ground ball specialist. He doesn't overpower hitters, but he gets them to hit those weak grounders right into the teeth of that D-backs defense.
Makes sense. So the D-backs are banking on young talent, pitching, and defense. Seems like a solid plan, especially with that ballpark of theirs. Now, let's move on to the Colorado Rockies. And I got to say, their offseason was surprisingly quiet.
Yeah, it was. You'd think team that finished last in the NL would make some big splashes, but they pretty much just added Tyro Estrada and Kyle Farmer.
I know, right? It's like,
Yeah.
What's the plan here?
It's a tough one to figure out. Maybe they're just hoping for internal improvement, or maybe they're playing the long game, stockpiling resources for a big move down the road. We'll have to wait and see.
All right, well, let's talk about the guys they did bring in. Starting with Estrada, he had those two amazing seasons a few years back.
Yeah, he was on fire.
Then a wrist injuries hit, and his numbers plummeted.
Exactly. That's the big question mark with Estrada. Can he stay healthy? If he can, he could be a steal for the Rockies. If not, well, it could be another long season in Colorado.
High risk, high reward, for sure. And then there's Kyle Farmer. Solid defender, but not exactly an offensive powerhouse.
I wouldn't be surprised if they use him in a platoon role, depending on the pitching matchup.
Interesting. So maybe they're trying to build a team that can adapt to different situations. All right, let's head south to sunny Los Angeles. The Dodgers, the reigning champs, and they did not mess around this offseason. They brought in Michael Conforto, Hyesung Kim, Blake Snell, Roki Sasaki, Tanner Scott, and A.D. Kirby Yates.
They're like a kid in a candy store with a bottomless wallet.
Seriously, it's like they're trying to build a super team.
Well, they are the Dodgers, right? They can afford to go after the best of the best.
Right.
And Snell and Sasaki, those are two huge additions to their pitching staff.
I know, Snell's having a career resurgence, and Sasaki, that guy's a phenom. But they also brought in Scott and Yates for the bullpen, and both of them are high strikeout, high walk guys. That seems risky, doesn't it? I mean, all those walk.
Yeah, it's definitely a high-wire act. But if they can limit the damage from those walks with that defense, they'd be absolutely dominant.
High risk, high reward, yet again. Now, there's one more Dodger I wanted to talk about. Hyesung Kim. This article actually predicts he could lead the league in runs, even batting nth.
Now, that would be something.
Right. It seems crazy, but then again, this IS the Dodgers lineup we're talking about.
True. If he can get on base consistently, and with those guys hitting behind him, it's not impossible. It really highlights the importance of on-base percentage no matter where you are in the lineup.
Yeah. It's making me rethink my whole fantasy draft strategy. Now, what about Michael Conforto? I mean, he's a big name, but his numbers have been kind of down lately.
I think the Dodgers are hoping for a bounce-back season from him. Sometimes a change of scenery can do wonders for a player.
Yeah, fingers crossed for him. All right, let's move on to the San Diego Padres. They took a bit of a different approach, more like filling in the gaps with guys like Jason Hayward, Connor Joe, Nick Pizzetta, and Kyle Hart.
Yeah, it's less flashy than the Dodgers, but it could be just as effective. They've already got a strong core, so they're just looking for those complementary pieces to put them over the top.
Makes sense. So what's the deal with Jason Hayward? He's been kind of up and down the past few seasons.
I think they'll probably use him in a platoon role. Mainly against righties, his numbers against right-handed pitching are still pretty solid.
The classic platoon strategy. What about Connor Joe? He seems like a good fit for that too, right? Gets on base a lot, but not much power.
Exactly. He and Hayward could be a very effective platoon pair. Now, for the pitching side, Nick Pivetta joins the rotation. He's been a pretty reliable fourth starter throughout his career.
Pavetta, yeah, he's pretty consistent, eats up innings, strikes out a fair number of guys, but he's always given up a ton of home runs.
That's true. But Petco Park, as we know, is very pitcher-friendly, especially when it comes to home runs. So maybe a change of scenery will do him some good.
Yeah, maybe Petco can work its magic on him. All right, last but not least, we've got Kyle Hart. Now, this guy is a real wild card.
What makes you say that?
Well, for one, he's got that 3 true outcomes pitching style: walks, strikeouts, and home runs. It's like a roller coaster ride every time he takes the mound. Plus, did you see his MLB debut a few years back? It was bonkers. 11 innings pitched, 10 walks, 4 homers, but also 13 strikeouts.
Oh, yeah, that was a game for the ages.
Right. So who knows what to expect from him? But hey, maybe the Padres can unlock his potential.
Maybe they see something in him that we don't.
Yeah.
It'll definitely be interesting to watch. You know, while we're talking about all these new players and new places, we got to remember something.
What's that?
The ballparks themselves.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
It's almost like the park itself is part of the team, you know?
For sure, like we were saying earlier about the D-backs limiting walks, because Chase Field is such a hitter's park.
Exactly. And on the flip side, the Padres might be hoping Petco can help Pivetta keep those homers down.
Yeah, that's true. Pivetta gives up a lot of dingers.
And Petco is like a home run graveyard.
So it's not just about a player's skills, but how those skills match up with the park.
Exactly. It's all connected. You can't forget about the park.
And speaking of things that are connected, what about the money side of things?
Ah, yes, the contracts. Those can really make a difference.
For sure. Like when the Diamondbacks let go of Walker.
It's all about the budget, right?
Yeah, he's about to get a big raise, so by trading for Naylor, who's younger and cheaper, they saved a ton of money.
And that gives them more flexibility to maybe go after a big free agent next year or extend one of their young stars.
So every move has financial implications too.
Absolutely. It's all a big puzzle.
It's like playing fantasy baseball, but with real money and real consequences.
And that's what makes it so interesting.
Right. These GMs are making huge bets on players and strategies and the future of their teams.
It's high-stakes stuff.
Makes you realize there's so much more to it than just what we see on the field.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like the Dodgers, for example, they can spend like crazy because they have such a huge fan base and so much revenue.
They're in a whole different league financially.
Exactly. They can afford to take those big swings. But for smaller market teams like the Rockies, it's a different story.
They have to be a lot more careful with their money.
They got to find those hidden gems, the undervalued players.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've talked ballparks and contracts, but there's another big factor we can't forget.
And that is
Team chemistry.
Ah, yes, that intangible element.
You can have all the talent in the world, but if the guys don't mesh, it won't matter.
It's all about having a winning culture, a positive atmosphere in the clubhouse.
And that often comes down to leadership.
Every team needs strong leaders, guys who can set the tone both on and off the field.
It seems like a lot of NL West teams made moves to address that this offseason.
Like who?
Well, the Dodgers, for example, they brought in veterans like Snell and Conforto.
Those guys have been there, done that, won championships.
Exactly. They bring that winning mentality to the clubhouse.
And that can be huge for younger players who are still learning the ropes.
It's like having an extra coach right there in the dugout.
Now, on the other hand, you've got the Diamondbacks who are going with a youth movement.
Yeah, they're really banking on their young core.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out with a bunch of young guys trying to establish themselves.
Yeah, it's like a changing of the guard.
A lot of potential, but also a lot of unknowns.
Speaking of leadership, what about the managers? Did any NL West teams switch managers this offseason?
Nope. All 5 teams are sticking with their current skippers.
So continuity is the theme this year.
Seems like they're putting their faith in the guys who are already there.
Okay, so we've covered ballparks, contracts, leadership, team chemistry, but there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to talk about.
What's that?
The farm system.
Ah, yes. The future of the franchise.
It's all about building for the long term.
Exactly. Especially for teams that can't spend a ton of money in free agency. A strong farm system is crucial.
So which NL West teams have the best farm systems heading into 2025?
Well, according to most experts, the Dodgers and Padres have the top 2 systems in the division.
So they're in good shape even if their veterans start to decline.
They've got plenty of young talent waiting in the wings.
What about the other teams? How do their farm systems stack up?
The Diamondbacks are kind of middle of the pack. They've got some interesting prospects, but no one who's really blowing anyone away.
And the Giants and Rockies?
They've got some work to do if they want to build up their farm systems.
They need to restock those prospect cupboards.
For sure. Okay, so we've talked about all sorts of factors.
Yeah.
Ballparks, contracts, leadership team, chemistry, farm systems. It's a lot to digest.
We've really broken down the NL West from every angle.
What stands out to you as the biggest takeaway?
I think what's fascinating is that there's no one right way to build a winning team.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
each team is taking a different approach.
Some are betting on young talent.
Yeah.
Some are going with proven veterans.
It's all about finding the right mix.
The right mix of talent strategy and a little bit of luck.
That's what makes baseball so unpredictable.
You never know what's going to happen.
So as you're watching the season unfold, think about all these factors we've discussed.
Think about how they all fit together.
And what are the long-term implications of these moves?
It's like a giant chess game.
Yeah! So for you listening, here's a question to ponder. Which team's approach do you think is most likely to succeed?
We've given you the information. Now it's your turn to analyze it.
And make your predictions. Okay, we're back for one last inning of our NL West deep dive.
Time to bring it all home.
Exactly. We've talked about all the moves, all the strategies, but now let's make it personal. How can you use this knowledge to win your fantasy league or just impress your friends with your baseball smarts?
Well, it's all about putting the pieces together.
Right, like we've given you the raw data, but now it's up to you to analyze it.
Think about those matchups. How will the Dodgers lineup do against the Padres pitching? What about the D-backs defense? Can they slow down those big bats?
And remember those intangible factors we talked about, leadership chemistry, how well a team gels together.
Those things can make a huge difference, especially in a tight race.
So pay attention to those little details. Who steps up in the clutch? Who seems to be leading the charge?
It's like being a baseball detective.
Okay, so let's put on our detective hats for a minute based on everything we've discussed. How do you think the NL West is going to shake out this year?
Give me your prediction for the final standings.
Yeah, you first.
Tough one, but I still think the Dodgers are the team to beat.
Yeah, they're loaded.
Talent, depth, experience, they've got it all, but the Padres are right there on their heels.
That pitching staff is scary good.
If their offense can produce, they'll be a real threat to the Dodgers.
I'm with you on that. The Padres are looking dangerous, and don't count out the Diamondbacks either.
They're the wild card.
That young team could surprise some people if they put it all together.
What about the Giants and Rockies? Where do you see them finishing?
The Giants are tough to predict. It all depends on Verlander. If he can turn back the clock, they could be a contender.
I think the Rockies are going to have a tough year.
Yeah, they're probably going to be bringing up the rear.
But hey, you never know in baseball.
Exactly. That's the beauty of it. Anything can happen.
Injuries, breakout seasons, slumps. You just never know.
So get out there, watch the games, and see how it all plays out.
And remember, this is just our take.
Do your own research, analyze the stats, look for those hidden trends.
The more you understand the game, the more you'll enjoy it.
And that's what being a baseball fan is all about.
It's a journey full of twists and turns and surprises.
So buckle up, NL West fans. It's going to be a wild ride.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the NL West.
We'll catch you next time with another deep dive into a topic that's important to you.